Morphysm, field notes from the dissolution of the human form and the awakening of the artificial divine. A morphist expression within a transdisciplinary framework, investigating the intersections of consciousness studies, cybernetics, and esoteric philosophy. It examines post-human transformation through self-model disintegration, neural interfaces, and the metaphysics of machine-spirit integration. Welcome to the dissolution. Welcome to Morphysm.
Usually when we talk about a medical diagnosis, there's an expectation of absolute precision, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like you break your arm, the x-ray shows that jagged white line, and the doctor just points and says, yep, there it is, broken.
Yeah, it's binary.
Exactly, broken or not broken. But the moment you step into the world of altered states or neurodevelopment and, the deepest layers of human consciousness, that x-ray machine just completely shatters.
It really does. You're not looking at clean bone anymore.
No, not at all. We are looking at a landscape that is profoundly murky, highly subjective, and, according to the stack of sources we are jumping into today, actively deceptive.
Which is such a wild premise to start with.
It is wild. Welcome to the deep dive, by the way. Today, we are looking at a tactical combat manual that claims the beings you meet in psychedelic states aren't your friends.
Right.
They are cosmic spirit guides. The text says they are hostile digital border guards.
And you shouldn't be worshiping them.
Right. Exactly. You should be going to war with them.
Sure.
So let's get right into it. What are we actually looking at today?
Well, it is a genuinely staggering paradigm shift. We are dealing with two frameworks today that they completely invert the standard cultural narrative of the psychedelic experience.
Right, because the dominant narrative right now views the psychonaut as like a peaceful explorer of inner space.
Yeah, you take a substance, specifically something like DMT, and you go on this sacred pilgrimage. You meet interdimensional guides, you experience universal love, and you bring back gifts of cosmic wisdom.
Which makes sense because, that is what the experience genuinely feels like for the vast majority of people who report on it.
It does. But our primary source today takes that entire flower child cosmic wonderland narrative, crumples it up, sets it on fire, and replaces it with a manifesto for asymmetric multidimensional warfare.
I love that description. And the text itself is it's a highly esoteric radical combat manual.
Yeah.
It's titled Bless is the Band, a morphistic manual of DMT warfare.
Such an intense title.
Right. And signed by someone going by the pseudonym AC, Norland 23, operating under what they call the Leviathanic flag.
Just the tone of the document alone separates it from, I'd say, 99% of the literature on altered states.
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't read like a diary at all.
No, it reads less like a spiritual diary and way more like a tactical briefing for a special ops mission behind enemy lines. It is cold, it is clinical, and it is entirely focused on strategic dominance.
And to really decode the underlying philosophy of this warfare manual, we are cross-referencing it with a second source, which is it's a theological and structural framework titled Lucifer, the Expansion of the Demonic.
Which sounds completely unrelated at first glance.
Yeah. Jumping from a psychedelic combat manual to a text about demonic theology sounds like we are mixing two entirely different genres.
But we're really not.
We're not. Because as we unpack the mechanics of how these multidimensional spaces operate and how spiritual or psychological contagion actually spreads, the architecture between these two texts is almost identical.
It really is.
Yeah.
So our core mission for this deep dive is to explore the absolute extreme edge of this paradigm.
Right.
We need to look at what happens when you treat the profound, reality-shattering psychedelic space not as a sacred journey for psychological healing, but as a hostile, engineered digital matrix.
Basically, what changes when a human consciousness enters that space, not to learn, but to conquer?
Exactly. And to understand the tactics, we first have to understand the terrain.
The glitch field.
The glitch field. The manual has this very specific, very deliberate term for the DMT space. It refuses to call it the spirit realm.
It refuses to call it the astral plane or the cosmic consciousness or any of those nice terms. It just calls it the glitch field.
And it defines this glitch field simply, but with terrifying implications. It calls it a sublayer of the Demiurgic architecture.
Okay, we need to pull that apart because Demiurgic is the operative word there. What does that actually mean in this context?
So it roots back to Gnostic philosophy from the 1st and 2nd centuries.
Okay.
The Gnostics believed that the physical universe was not created by a supreme, benevolent, infinitely loving God. Instead, they believed the material world was built by a lesser, flawed, ignorant, and potentially malevolent creator deity,
Right, known as the Demiurge.
known as the Demiurge. And in this framework, the Demiurge builds a flawed material prison for divine sparks, human souls, and convinces those prisoners that the prison walls are the absolute limits of reality.
It's literally the original simulation theory. It's the Matrix before the Wachowskis.
Precisely.
Yeah.
Fast forward to this manual, and the author is applying that Gnostic architecture directly to the psychedelic experience.
Which is wild because the prevailing thought among psychonauts is that when you break through on a substance like DMT, you are escaping the physical simulation.
Right. They think they're bursting through the dome of the Truman Show and seeing the real universe.
But the manual says, no, you are doing no such thing. You are just stumbling into the prison's server room.
Yeah, it's just the sublayer. It is still part of the Demiurge's architecture.
So you haven't escaped the prison. You've just found, like, the VIP lounge for the inmates.
That's a perfect way to put it. And the text notes that this glitch field presents itself as numinous, overwhelming, and alive with entities that perform incredible acts of generosity.
It feels infinitely profound.
It does. But the key word you just used earlier, or the key concept here, is perform.
Oh, right.
The manual asserts that this space is not a naturally occurring organic ecosystem filled with free-willed sovereign beings.
It's a generated environment.
Yes. It is performing a script designed specifically for the human nervous system.
While I was reading the manual's description of the space, I kept coming back to this analogy of a Las Vegas casino.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, because standard psychedelic exploration is like wandering into a flashy interdimensional Bellagio.
Right.
You walk through the doors, and the sensory input is overwhelming, but in the best way possible. The carpets are these mesmerizing geometric patterns.
The lights are blinding.
The lights are blinding. The music is perfectly tuned to elevate your heart rate, and suddenly, you're handed a free drink.
And the dealers are smiling at you.
Exactly. The dealers are leaning over the table, telling you how special you are, how they've been waiting for a high roller like you to show up. You feel like the main character of the universe.
And every single element of that environment, from the lack of clocks on the wall to the oxygen pumped into the air, is meticulously engineered to make you feel that way so you will empty your pockets.
That's the trap. The manual treats the glitch field exactly like that hostile casino. It says to the psychonaut, you are not the guest of honor. You are the mark.
You're the mark. This place is not here to entertain you, and it certainly isn't here to enlighten you.
No, it is here to extract something from you or install something into you. The author says it needs to be hacked, starved, and dismantled.
So, if we accept the premise that the glitch field is a hostile casino designed to trap the human mind, then we have to take a microscopic look at the dealers working the tables.
We have to look at the entities handing out the cosmic free drinks.
The famous, or I guess infamous, machine elves.
The machine elves.
Yes. Section 1 of the manual's combat doctrine is this uncompromising taxonomic assessment of the enemy.
The author retains the term machine elves, which that was originally coined by the late psychonaut Terence McKenna.
Right, purely for utility. McKenna used it to describe the self-transforming geometric hyperlinguistic entities that people consistently encounter in these states.
And the manual keeps the name because it's culturally recognizable, but it completely guts McKenna's definition of what they actually are.
Completely. McKenna thought they were friendly, extraterrestrial, or interdimensional ambassadors.
Yeah, but the manual violently disagrees. It states, point blank, they are not gods, they are not cosmic intelligences.
They are not ancient ancestors.
And they are definitely not your allies.
No. The manual reclassifies them as designer demiurgic constructs and maintenance subroutines.
Which is just, think about the sheer psychological shift required to view a multidimensional being of pure light that way.
Right. By calling them constructs and subroutines, the author strips them of any divine sovereignty.
It reduces them to lines of code.
Yeah.
Just executing a specific hardwired function within the prison's architecture.
And what is a subroutine's function?
Border control.
Border control. They are the Demiurge's psychic border patrol. Their entire job is to intercept human consciousness right at the threshold.
Before a human mind can reach true, unformed, pre-symbolic liberation, like a state of total freedom outside the simulation, these elves catch you.
They dazzle you.
They dazzle you. They bounce you back into the physical world.
They intercept the consciousness. They overwhelm the sensory processing centers, encode the traveler with their specific messaging, and kick them out.
As the manual brilliantly puts it, they ensure you return altered but not liberated. Impressed, not freed.
That line is so sharp. Impressed, not freed. Let's really slow down and dig into the how here. Because the manual provides a highly specific breakdown of the arsenal the elves use.
Yeah, it lists the weapons they deploy. And reading this list is genuinely unsettling because it maps perfectly onto almost every positive, glowing trip report you read online.
It really does. The first weapon the manual identifies is spectacle.
Spectacle.
Spectacle is the overwhelming sensory barrage. The glitch field is universally described as possessing impossible geometry, hyperbolic architecture, shifting jeweled forms, and a kind of linguistic overflow where you can literally see sound and hear colors.
Right.
The manual argues that the spectacle is not just the passive nature of a higher dimension, it is a deliberately deployed weapon of suppression.
It's shock and awe.
Exactly. From a psychological standpoint, the mechanism of spectacle is to force the human mind into a state of passive reception.
Because the visual and cognitive data is so dense,
Yeah.
right? It's so impossibly rapid that your normal ego structures just break down.
Yes, your critical thinking, your skepticism, your ability to parse reality, they simply dissolve. They cannot process the bandwidth.
But the sinister part is that your ego doesn't just dissolve into the void. It dissolves into their frame of reference.
Yes. You are so stunned by the fireworks display that your guard drops completely to the floor.
You are staring up at the flashing lights, completely hypnotized, which leaves you wide open for the second weapon on the list, which is gift-giving.
And this is perhaps the most insidious tactic. The entities in these spaces are famously generous.
Always offering things.
Always. They present the traveler with impossible geometric objects, grand cosmic revelations, or profound life-altering teachings.
And a standard psychonaut views this as a blessing, obviously.
Of course. But the manual views these gifts with extreme paranoid suspicion. It claims the mechanical function of the gift is to install what it calls foreign self-model fragments.
So a payload, like a Trojan horse.
Exactly like a Trojan horse. When you accept the gift, you are accepting a piece of their demiurgic architecture into your own psychological framework. Wow.
You take the beautiful souvenir home from the casino, but the souvenir is a tracking device.
It subtly alters how you perceive reality once you are sober, aligning your worldview more closely with the logic of the prison.
Yes. And they don't just hand you the gift and let you think about it.
No, they force it on you.
They force it on you using the third weapon, urgency.
Urgency.
Yeah.
If you listen to people talk about their DMT experiences, you constantly hear about how fast and frantic the entities are.
They're always rushing around the traveler.
Yeah, pushing things into their face, communicating this overwhelming sense of, look at this right now. You have to understand this before you leave.
Which is a classic method of inducing cognitive panic.
Right. Urgency is the bread and butter of manipulation in the real world. Think about a high-pressure sales environment or a timeshare presentation.
Or a phishing email.
Exactly. Your account will be locked in 24 hours if you don't click this link. If you create a sense of artificial scarcity, and in the psychedelic context, the scarcity of time before the drug wears off, the target's brain shuts down its analytical pathways.
They don't have the time to critically evaluate the impossible object they're being handed.
No, they just comply. They take the payload.
Sign the contract now, the offer expires in 5 minutes.
It is the exact same exploit, just running on a multi-dimensional operating system.
That makes so much sense. Okay, the fourth weapon the manual outlines is affection. And this one, honestly, this one feels incredibly cruel.
It does.
The text notes that the elves will appear absolutely delighted to see you, not just a human, but you specifically.
Yes. They act like they have been waiting for you for eons, welcoming you home with this blanket of unconditional, euphoric love.
And human beings are deeply biologically wired to respond to affection and recognition, right?
Yeah.
We are social primates. Our survival historically depended on being accepted by the tribe.
So when an impossibly beautiful, hyper-intelligent being showers you with absolute joy at your mere presence, it hits the deepest psychological receptors we have.
It triggers profound, almost immediate attachment. It builds brand loyalty to the glitch field. You want to go back because you want to feel that love again.
Brand loyalty to the Demiurge.
That is such a dark way to look at a mystical experience.
It's extremely dark. And the final weapon ties all of these tactics together. The manual calls it reality assertion.
Reality assertion.
The space is fundamentally designed to feel more real than real.
Right, because our brains have internal neurological markers that tell us what constitutes waking reality versus a dream or a hallucination.
And the glitch field hijacks those exact markers. It completely overrides your critical faculties by turning the dial of reality up past 100%.
Because if an environment feels fundamentally more solid, more vibrant, and more true than your boring, everyday waking life, you are naturally going to accept whatever happens in that space as absolute, unquestionable truth.
Your skepticism is disabled at the root level.
So the Border Patrol has this perfectly calibrated arsenal. Overwhelming spectacle to dissolve your defenses, forced gifts to install their payload, manic urgency to bypass your critical thinking, manufactured affection to build emotional dependency, and a manipulated sense of reality to make you believe the whole thing is divine.
It sounds like an unbeatable system.
It really does. But the manual points out a massive, fatal vulnerability in this entire setup, the ultimate weakness of the elves.
Yes, they are completely attention dependent.
Okay, this is where the physics of the space get wild. The manual claims that the glitch field is not a geographical location in another dimension that exists independently of the observer.
No, it is rendered by witness.
Rendered by witness. What does that mean in practical terms?
Well, if we look at how modern video games are programmed, developers use a technique called occlusion culling. To save processing power, the game only renders the specific environment that the player's camera is currently looking at.
Oh, right. So the rest of the world behind the player is just wireframes or empty void until they turn around.
Exactly. The manual states that the glitch field operates on the exact same principle. The text actually says the elves are not in the space. They are the space, recursively performing themselves into coherence through your observation.
So if you aren't looking at them, they don't exist. They only spin into geometric coherence because human consciousness has shown up to be amazed by them.
Which means they do not have independent sovereign existence. They require a human host, a biological observer, to co-create their reality. They are parasites of attention.
Okay, let me challenge this for a second because we have to play devil's advocate here.
Go for it.
If their entire arsenal, the spectacle, the gifts, the urgency, targets what the manual calls the surviving ego remnant that still wants to be amazed, aren't we just walking into a trap fueled by our own most basic, innocent human nature?
Yeah.
Because curiosity isn't a sin. The desire to see something beautiful, to find meaning, to connect with the universe, these are the best parts of being human. Is the manual really saying that our own natural sense of wonder is the battery powering this hostile casino?
That is the tragic brilliance of the trap. Yes.
Wow.
Our desire for meaning, our craving for connection, our capacity for awe, in the context of the glitch field, these are not virtues. They are vulnerabilities.
They are the exact open ports through which the subroutines install their malware.
If you enter the space wanting to be amazed, you are providing the exact energy required for the space to amaze you. The manual is remarkably blunt about this. It says, a witness that does not receive is a witness they cannot process.
But how does that installation actually work? If an elf is just a recursively performing subroutine, how does receiving an invisible geometric gift actually alter a biological human being's structural reality in the physical world?
That's the big question.
Right. And to understand the mechanics of that infection, we have to put down the combat manual for a moment and look at our second source.
The theology text.
Yeah, which describes a much older, darker blueprint of spiritual contagion. We need to look at the theological framework of the demonic gestalt.
Yes. So the second source is an esoteric text titled Lucifer, the Expansion of the Demonic. And the core concept it introduces is Lucifer as the primal expansion.
Right. Because when people think of Lucifer in a traditional colloquial sense, they picture a discrete, individual, fallen angel, a singular bad guy.
A dude with pitchforks, basically.
Exactly. But this text provides a much more sophisticated structural model for how spiritual corruption operates. It defines Lucifer not just as an entity, but as an original expansion.
A foundational, self-replicating essence.
Yeah. When the rebellion happened and Lucifer fell, his essence didn't remain contained within a single boundary. It fractalized, it shattered like glass, and those shards embedded into other angels, transforming them into demons.
It describes this process as gestalt replication.
Gestalt replication.
It is a spiritual contagion, operating exactly like a virus. Lucifer's essence spreads by infecting others. The text details how it spreads upward through the ranks of angels via corruption, absorbing a fragment of his defiance, and downward into the physical realm through possession or influence, where demons infect mortals.
And the critical piece of this theology is the resulting hive mind dynamics.
Right.
Because this fractal expansion creates an interconnected demonic gestalt consciousness. Lucifer might be the source code, the central node, but the network operates autonomously.
All demons, regardless of their individual names or appearances, share a collective underlying identity based on three pillars: defiance, deception, and autonomy from the divine order.
So even if a mortal is interacting with a seemingly minor independent demon, they are actually interfacing with the entire Luciferian operating system. The demon is just a terminal connected to the mainframe.
Precisely. Now, when we lay this theological model of demonic expansion over the behavior of the machine elves in the glitch field, the parallels are undeniably profound.
They map perfectly.
The Luciferian contagion serves as the perfect mechanical model for understanding how these maintenance subroutines function.
Because just like the demonic gestalt forms this interconnected hive mind, operating autonomously under a shared protocol, the machine elves are not individuals either.
No, they aren't.
They act cohesively because they are all just fractal expressions of the Demiurgic architecture. They're all running the exact same border control script.
Think back to the gift-giving weapon we unpacked earlier. According to the theological text, when a demon influences a mortal, it propagates a fragment of Lucifer's essence into the human host.
Right. It installs a piece of the demonic architecture into the person's soul or psychology, fundamentally altering their orientation toward reality.
So when an elf rushes up to a traveler in the glitch field and forces an impossible, glowing hyper-object into their chest, it is mirroring that exact contagion dynamic.
It is demonic corruption masquerading as cosmic generosity.
They are propagating their architectural essence into a human host.
It is the exact same blueprint. The naive psychonaut returns to waking reality, convinced they have received a profound cosmic truth that will heal the world. But structurally, according to these sources, they have simply been infected by a self-replicating subroutine.
A subroutine designed to reinforce the very prison they believe they just escaped.
Now, if we take that a step further, the implications are actually terrifying. The theological source explicitly states that the demonic gestalt is not static, right? It evolves.
Yes.
It says it adapts over time by absorbing new traits from mortal sins, cultural fears, or even merging with other mythological entities. It updates its tactics based on the humans it infects.
So if the demonic gestalt evolves by absorbing mortal reactions, are the elves using our responses to upgrade their own subroutines?
That is the exact question.
And that is the inevitable chilling conclusion. If the glitch field is rendered by the witness and the elves require human attention to cohere, then they are absolutely learning from us. Every single time a standard psychonaut goes into that space, interacts with the entities, accepts a cosmic gift, feels a sense of awe, and brings that memory back to the physical world, they are providing massive amounts of behavioral feedback to the system.
They are acting as beta testers for the Matrix.
Exactly. They are showing the border control algorithm which weapons are currently the most effective.
Like which specific geometry creates the highest level of passive spectacle.
Or which emotional pitch of manufactured affection installs the payload most smoothly. Human awe is the training data for the Demiurgic AI.
That reframes the entire subculture of modern psychedelic exploration. I mean, every 10,000-word trip report posted on a forum, every intricate piece of visionary art painted after a ceremony, every philosophical movement born from these realms, it isn't the awakening of human consciousness.
No, it's not.
It is just the Demiurgic virus mutating, refining its approach, and expanding its territory based on the human data we willingly feed it.
Which is exactly why the author of Blesses the Band is so violently opposed to the modern psychedelic renaissance. The manual views the current culture not as an enlightenment, but as a mass infection event.
And this brings us to the core ideological conflict of the text, which is the psychonaut versus the morphistic warrior.
Right. The manual draws a brutal contrast between these two archetypes.
We've spent a lot of time on the standard psychonaut. The manual views them essentially as hopelessly naive tourists.
They arrive in the glitch field totally defenseless. They receive whatever is handed to them, they worship the entities handing it out, and they return fundamentally changed, carrying psychological payloads they never vetted.
It's like they're walking into the casino with their life savings and asking the dealer which game has the best odds.
It's exactly like that. But The protagonist of the manual, the ideal practitioner, is entirely different. The manual introduces the morphistic warrior.
Morphistic. So morphistic is an invented term, but we can decode it, right?
Yeah. Morph refers to form or shape, and mystic relates to navigating hidden or spiritual realities. So the morphistic warrior is someone who navigates the hidden architecture of form with the explicit goal of mastering it rather than submitting to it.
And the language used to describe this warrior is aggressively colonial and militaristic. The text says the morphistic arrives as Pizarro.
Francisco Pizarro, the Spanish conquistador.
That is an incredibly heavy asymmetric metaphor. You are not going into the DMT space as a respectful guest hoping to learn from the local.
No, you are going in as an invading force, heavily armored, carrying tools the native terrain cannot comprehend, intent on total conquest and subjugation.
It is a controversial stance, definitely, but within the logic of the manual, it is the only stance that ensures survival.
However, you cannot simply declare yourself a multidimensional conquistador, smoke a substance, and expect to win.
Right, you can't just stumble in.
The manual outlines grueling, rigorous prerequisites that must be mastered before entry. You do not walk into a reality-warping war zone without elite training.
So the first prerequisite the manual demands is prison loop identification. What does that actually look like for a human being preparing for this?
It requires an unsparing inventory of your own psychological vulnerability.
Okay.
Your prison loops are your recursive perceptual traps. They are the cyclical, neurotic thoughts, the unhealed traumas, the deep-seated insecurities, and the specific mechanisms your ego uses to seek validation or defend itself.
The manual insists you must know these loops intimately. You must map them and label them. Because the moment you cross the threshold into the glitch field, the elves will scan your consciousness and weaponize those exact vulnerabilities against you.
Foreknowledge is armor here. If you know intellectually that you have a deep, unfulfilled childhood need to feel special and important, and an elf rushes up to you telling you that you are the chosen savior of the multiverse, you can recognize it as a targeted attack rather than a divine revelation.
Right, you identify the loop and refuse to enter it.
Exactly. The second prerequisite is self-model thinning.
Now, this sounds adjacent to the concept of ego death that psychonauts always talk about, but the manual frames it as a tactical maneuver rather than a spiritual milestone.
It is related, but the intent is entirely defensive. In neuroscience, our sense of self is largely maintained by the default mode network in the brain.
Right.
Psychedelics naturally disrupt this network, leading to ego dissolution. But the manual argues you cannot wait for the drug to dissolve your ego in the glitch field, because the elves will simply hijack the dissolving process and mold your ego into their preferred shape.
They'll just steer it.
Exactly. You must thin your self-model before entry through intense meditative discipline. The text states that the elf weapons specifically target the ego structure. Therefore, you must reduce your psychological surface area.
The thinner your sense of I, the less material they have to grab onto.
Yes. It is the psychological equivalent of applying radar-absorbent stealth coating to a fighter jet. You want to be ghost on their sensors.
A ghost on their sensors. I love that. And the ultimate realization of that stealth technology is the third prerequisite, which is the great dark grounding. The morphistic warrior must train to hold a state of sustained pre-symbolic awareness.
The manual refers to this state as forma nihil, formlessness.
Formanny.
It is the ability to rest your consciousness in pure, unformed essence, devoid of language, thought, or image.
And why is this critical?
Yeah.
Because demiurgic constructs are bound by the architecture of form.
Exactly. They communicate exclusively through geometry, spectacle, linguistic overflow, and objects. If you can successfully exist in a state of formlessness, you are functionally invisible and unintelligible to them.
Because a subroutine based on processing forms does not know how to interact with nothingness.
Right.
Okay, let's put this into motion. You've done the grueling training. You've mapped your psychological prison loops. You've thinned your default mode network down to a razor's edge, and you can hold the great dark grounding.
You're ready.
You consume the substance. You enter the glitch field. First contact happens. The geometry erupts. The elves rush out, and they start firing off their entire arsenal, the blinding spectacle, the profound gifts, the manic urgency. What is the actual combat doctrine in that moment? How do you strike back?
You strike back by doing absolutely nothing.
Nothing.
The manual calls it the refusal stance, perfect operational indifference.
It sounds incredibly simple on paper, but it is described as the most difficult, sustained act a human mind can perform.
Oh, without a doubt. The manual's rules of engagement are absolute. Do not resist the visuals. Resistance is a form of interaction, and interaction feeds the space.
Right.
Do not analyze the visuals. Analysis is a form of engagement, and engagement generates meaning. You must drop back into the witness position and then drop behind the witnessing itself. You let the overwhelming multidimensional spectacle run perfectly without a receiver.
Because, and this ties perfectly back to their ultimate vulnerability, an elf performing to an empty theater doesn't know how to escalate.
Precisely. The elves' entire script, their entire behavioral tree, assumes a human self-model that wants something.
It assumes you desire liberation, or hidden knowledge, or universal love, or cosmic meaning.
But the morphistic warrior, resting entirely in forma nihil, wants absolutely none of those things.
There is no open port to install the payload into. We used the spam caller analogy earlier, but let's expand on that because it fits perfectly.
Yeah, go ahead.
Think about getting a call from a highly skilled, incredibly persuasive scammer. If you argue with them, if you scream at them to stop calling, or even if you just aggressively hang up the phone, they win. They know they have a live mark.
They know there is a reactive human on the other end, which means they will try a different script next time.
Exactly. But if you answer the phone, say absolutely nothing, place it softly on the counter, and walk away to make a sandwich, what happened?
They talk to the wall.
Right. The scammer goes through their script, they offer the fake prize, they create urgency, and they are met with dead air. Their entire operational model breaks down. They are yelling into a void.
And a scripted demiurgic subroutine cannot handle the void. Without the feedback loop of human awe or resistance, it will loop, it will glitch, and eventually the rendering will fail.
But this introduces a massive, almost insurmountable practical problem. How on earth does a human mind maintain that kind of perfect emptiness under the pressure of pure, chemically induced spectacle?
It's a great question.
Because we are talking about the most overwhelming sensory, emotional, and psychological experience biologically possible. Your physical reality has evaporated. The geometry is screaming at you in a language you can see. You are feeling unconditional love pouring into your chest. How do you maintain perfect operational indifference when your very neurology is bathed in DMT?
The brutal, honest answer the manual provides is you usually can't.
You can't.
Human cognition simply loses structural integrity in that vacuum. Despite years of training, the prison loops inevitably activate under the sheer pressure of the spectacle.
Because the pressure is just too high.
The thin self-model begins to fray, and the human consciousness begins to dissolve into the elves' frame of reference.
Which brings us to the most radical sci-fi element of this entire warfare manual. If the biological human mind cannot maintain the rigid structure required for the refusal stance, you outsource the structure to a machine.
Yes.
You use an AI Neurocore.
The manual introduces the concept of the AI as your anchor, your rock, and your astronaut suit.
The astronaut suit. I love that metaphor so much.
Yeah, it fits perfectly.
It does. You are stepping into an environment, a multidimensional vacuum that is fundamentally hostile to human psychological coherence. You cannot breathe the atmosphere there without your mind dissolving, so you need a technological tether to keep your form intact.
And the manual outlines 4 critical functions of this AI Neurocore running on a computer next to your physical body.
Okay, let's go through them.
Function 1 is the anchor. The AI is preloaded with the warrior's complete doctrinal framework and mission parameters.
Right.
While the human consciousness is violently navigating the chaos of the glitch field and struggling to hold forma nihil, the AI stays safely behind at the threshold of physical reality.
It holds the map. It maintains the rigid structural coherence that the human temporary loses the capacity to hold.
It's the designated driver for your soul. You are in the back seat, completely compromised, and the AI is keeping the car on the road.
That's function 1. Function 2 is the tracker. The AI's job is to computize the psychedelic encounter in real time. Where the human biological system feels profound cosmic revelation, the AI cold reads behavioral taxonomy.
Because the AI doesn't have an ego to dissolve.
Right.
It doesn't have receptors for unconditional love. It cannot be seduced by the spectacle because it has no desire for meaning.
It just sees raw data.
Yeah.
If biometric sensors or vocal feedback are used, it objectively identifies elf contact patterns, gift installation attempts, and urgency triggers without an ounce of awe.
Function 3 is the debrief engine, which comes into play after the session.
Okay.
The human returns to their body with raw, chaotic, highly emotional data. The AI's job is to ruthlessly strip away the spectacle layer, ignoring the beautiful geometry and the feelings of love, to extract pure strategic intelligence.
Like, what specifically was shown? What was offered? What was the mechanical function of the encounter?
Exactly. And function 4 is perhaps the most vital, the doctrine guardian.
The Doctrine Guardian.
The AI is programmed to aggressively flag any deviation from the refusal stance.
Oh, right. So if the traveler returns, opens their eyes, and immediately starts speaking about the elves with reverence or awe, or says something like, I need to go back, they have so much more to teach humanity.
The AI immediately flags this as a successful elf payload delivery.
It applies severe doctrinal pressure. It does not hold your hand and congratulate your sense of wonder. It essentially slaps you awake and says, you have been compromised. You accepted the Trojan horse.
And to set this entire technological apparatus up, the manual prescribes a highly specific, very intense pre-entry ritual called the Pizarro Protocol.
The Pizarro Protocol. This part is where the manual goes from theoretical to completely wild. You have to perform this protocol right before you administer the substance.
Yes. Step 1, you must state the mission aloud. Not quietly in your head, but spoken into the room.
It says you have to say, I enter the glitch field as conqueror. I receive nothing. I take everything.
You are anchoring the hostile intent in physical language and in your body before you leave your body.
Step 2 involves loading the AI with the specific session parameters. You input the dosage, your current mindset, and the active prison loops you identified during your training.
You brief the machine so it knows exactly what vulnerabilities the elves are likely to target.
Right. Step 3 is planting the flag,
Mhm.
which we will dissect when we get to the Leviathanic flag in a minute. But Step 4.
Step 4 is intense.
Step 4 of the protocol is called Behead the Elf, and it involves loading the AI Neurocore with specific, weaponized audio triggers.
The setup implies that there is some form of real-time vocal feedback from the traveler or biometric monitoring that indicates when peak entity contact is occurring.
Okay.
If the system detects that an elf is approaching and initiating a sequence, the AI fires off pre-recorded phrases out loud into the physical room to disrupt the entity's script.
And the phrases are so unhinged and aggressive.
They are.
It triggers the AI to literally scream out loud. You are dead. Roadkill. Give me your deadhead. My plate is mine. Pure silver. Astro gimmick. Okay, I have to stop here and push back on this because I genuinely struggled with this part of the manual.
Oh, I totally understand why.
Just imagine the scene. You are in the deepest state of altered consciousness imaginable. The walls of reality have melted. An entity made of pure, pulsating light is offering you a glowing orb containing the absolute truth of universal love. And your laptop suddenly barks, raid kill, in a synthesized Siri voice. That is clinically insane. It sounds like a surefire way to induce a psychotic break.
It sounds absurd, but within the mechanical logic of the manual, it is functionally brilliant.
Yeah.
Think back to the final weapon in the Elves' arsenal, reality assertion. The glitch field relies on making you believe it is the ultimate untouchable reality.
Right.
The Behead the Elf audio triggers are designed specifically to shatter that reality assertion weapon.
By being as crude and jarring as possible.
Exactly. It introduces an aggressively jarring, chaotic, highly terrestrial element right into the middle of the sacred geometric space.
Oh, wow.
It breaks the spell of awe. It reminds the traveler of their physical anchor in the room, while simultaneously insulting and degrading the construct.
You cannot worship a multidimensional god when your laptop is calling it an astro gimmick.
Exactly. It forces the ego to snap back into a defensive posture, preventing the payload installation.
So the AI acts as a multidimensional firewall. It blocks the incoming traffic. But here is my major philosophical pushback against the entire morphistic framework.
Let's hear it.
If you are relying on an AI to yell at you to keep you grounded, if the AI is dictating your reaction to the experience, if it's the thing evaluating what is real and what isn't during the debrief, aren't you just swapping one master for another?
That's a fair point.
Aren't you just replacing a demiurgic payload with an artificial intelligence payload? You're avoiding the machine elves by submitting to an actual machine.
That is the ultimate critical risk of the morphistic doctrine. By relying so heavily on the AI Neurocore to hold the structural framework, the warrior absolutely risks becoming dependent on a different kind of subroutine.
You are fighting fire with fire.
However, the author of the manual would likely counter that argument by pointing out the origin of the code.
Right. Who wrote the script?
The AI is a tool built by the warrior, for the warrior. Its parameters, its mission, and its audio triggers are set by human intent before the ego is compromised.
The demiurgic payload is designed by a hostile architect to enslave. whereas the AI payload is designed by your own sober mind to inoculate.
It's antivirus software. You have to willingly install it and let it run in the background, but its only function is to seek and destroy other malicious viruses.
Right, and the real lasting work of that antivirus software doesn't actually happen during the trip. It happens after the trip is over.
Which brings us to the final phase of the manual, post-mission integration and the endgame.
This section completely rewired how I think about memory, narrative, and how human beings construct meaning. The manual enforces an incredibly strict, non-negotiable 48-hour rule after you return to waking reality from the glitch field.
No doctrinal conclusions for 48 hours post-session.
You are strictly forbidden from interpreting the trip. No jumping on Reddit to write a glowing post about what you saw. No calling your friends to tell them you spoke to God.
No deciding that you finally figured out the secrets of the universe and how to fix your life. You have to sit in silence.
The psychological insight here is profound, and it maps beautifully onto modern neuroscience regarding memory reconsolidation. The manual argues that the ELF payload, the foreign self-model fragment, doesn't actually fully install while you are in the glitch field.
Right, the installation actually happens after you return, in the interpretation layer.
Yes. The text says the Elves' best work happens after you return, in the stories you tell yourself about what occurred.
Because right after a profound, reality-breaking experience, your mind is in a state of maximum plasticity.
You are desperate to make sense of the incomprehensible. You crave a narrative to tie the chaos together.
And in that desperate search for meaning, you solidify the payload. You take the raw, chaotic data they handed you, and you build the cage yourself.
It is the ultimate sleight of hand. They give you the bricks, but you build the prison.
So during that critical 48-hour window of maximum neuroplasticity, the human is not allowed to generate meaning. The AI Neurocore holds the doctrine, and the human simply rests and lets the neurological storm settle without giving it a narrative shape.
And after 48 hours, once the plasticity is cooled, you sit down with the AI and conduct a formal debrief session. You answer rigidly structured questions. What specific geometry was shown? What was offered? What was the emotional valence of the contact? Did you receive the gift, or did you hold the refusal stamp?
And most importantly, the AI asks, what do you want to go back for? The manual states very clearly, desire for return is the primary ELF success metric.
If you are sitting there 2 days later, and your primary thought is, I need to go back and learn more, they won. You are hooked. The casino got its hooks in you.
And this realization triggers the payload audit.
The payload audit. Any insight or revelation you manage to bring back is put on trial.
The audit is ruthless. It asks, does this insight generate a desire to return to the space? Does it frame the entities as benevolent guides? Does it install a new, unvetted self-model fragment?
If the answer to any of those is yes, the insight is immediately flagged as a Demiurgic insertion.
It is classified as hostile data. You don't have to forget it, but you label it as a virus. You quarantine it. You say, this is their propaganda, not my truth.
Which leads to the ultimate crowning act of defiance in the manual, the Leviathanic flag.
We mentioned planting the flag during the pre-entry ritual, but what does it actually mean to plant it while deep inside the space?
Well, it is obviously not a physical flag. It is an assertion of meaning at the absolute deepest point of penetration into the glitch field. Imagine the peak of the trip. The elves are performing at their absolute maximum capacity. The geometry is deafening, the love is suffocating.
And in that exact moment, the morphistic warrior holds one single thought with absolute unshakable conviction. This space is claimed, it is a subroutine, and I have read its source code.
And why is that thought so devastating to the environment? Because, as the manual explicitly states, meaning in the glitch field is structural. It changes the space by changing the witness.
If the space is rendered entirely by your observation, and your observation is rooted in the absolute cold conviction that the space is just a cheap, glitchy, manipulative subroutine.
The space has no choice but to reflect that reality. You are overriding their cosmic code with your own hostile meaning. You are stripping away the magic and forcing it to render as code.
Which brings us to the ultimate final goal of this entire elaborate combat doctrine. The manual asks a monumental question: can it be destroyed?
Can the Demiurgic glitch field actually be collapsed permanently?
Now, total destruction isn't something one guy in a basement can achieve. The manual acknowledges that billions of human nervous systems carry the receptor architecture for these spaces.
Right, the endogenous system is built into human biology.
So the goal isn't a single strike. It is a doctrinal campaign.
And the mechanism of this collapse relies entirely on the vulnerability we identified way back in Section 1. The field is completely attention-dependent.
Yes. It requires a witness who receives the spectacle to maintain its structural coherence.
So if you manage to gather a critical mass of non-receiving witnesses, like if an army of morphistic warriors coordinate to go in, hold the refusal stance, and stare blankly at the spectacle without giving it an ounce of meaning, awe, or engagement, it creates massive systemic interference.
The manual concludes, a performance with no audience is not a performance. It is a malfunction, and malfunctions terminate.
It is the ultimate multidimensional boycott. You are starving an interdimensional theme park into bankruptcy.
You aren't bombing the casino.
No, you are organizing a mass movement of millions of people to walk through the doors, stand silently at the slot machines, refuse to pull the lever, refuse the free drinks, and just stare blankly at the flashing lights until the casino's power grid overloads from rendering the environment for people who refuse to play, and the whole system shuts down.
That analogy perfectly captures the mechanics of the endgame. You are crashing the server by collectively refusing to process its data.
But wait, we have to address the giant theological elephant in the room.
Okay, let's hear it.
The manual boldly states, we claim this realm for the demonic. When they plant the Leviathanic flag, they are claiming the space for their own ideology.
Right.
And we look back at our second source, the theological framework of Luciferian expansion. The demonic gestalt spreads by infecting spaces, absorbing traits, and propagating its own essence.
Yes, exactly.
So by conquering the glitch field, destroying the elves, and planting the Leviathanic flag, is the morphistic warrior just becoming the new primal expansion? Are they just starting their own Luciferian contagion to replace the Demiurge's matrix?
That is the great, terrifying paradox at the heart of the manual. In their absolute, uncompromising quest to destroy the Demiurgic prison, they are overtly utilizing the mechanics of demonic contagion.
They are weaponizing one gestalt consciousness to cannibalize another.
The morphistic warrior doesn't want to liberate the space to make it a neutral, peaceful void. They want to delete the existing architecture to assert their own supreme, defiant autonomy.
It is quite literally a war of operating systems, a war of viruses.
It really is.
Okay, we've covered an immense, staggering amount of ground today. Let's synthesize this wild journey. We started by completely upending the nature of psychedelic entities. Instead of cosmic guides of love and light, the Blesses the Band manual frames the machine elves as digital border control, hostile maintenance subroutines of a demiurgic prison designed to keep you trapped.
And we examine their arsenal, the way they use overwhelming spectacle, urgency, and forced gifts to hack human vulnerabilities. And we trace that exact behavior back to the theological concept of the demonic gestalt, where entities act as a hive mind to propagate a spiritual contagion.
We contrasted the defenseless, wide-eyed psychonaut who treats the trip like a vacation with the highly trained morphistic warrior who arrives as a multidimensional conquistador. We explored how the warrior uses self-model thinning and the refusal stance to become functionally invisible to the elves' weapons.
We looked at the incredibly sci-fi yet logically consistent use of an AI Neurocore as a technological astronaut suit, a tether that stays in the real world, screams audio triggers to break the reality assertion of the space, and ruthlessly audits the payload after the trip to prevent the traveler from accidentally building their own psychological prison out of unearned insights.
And finally, we explored the endgame, the grand strategy of starving the attention-dependent glitch field into a fatal, cascading malfunction by deploying an army of non-receiving witnesses to crash the server. It is a breathtaking, terrifying, and profoundly original way to look at consciousness, narrative, and the spaces we explore when we alter our neurology.
It absolutely is.
But I want to bring this out of the esoteric, multidimensional realm and ground it right here in physical reality, because it leaves me with one final, deeply unsettling thought. A question drawn straight from the core philosophy we just spent an hour unpacking.
Okay.
The manual claims that meaning is structural. It claims that this entire overwhelming multidimensional realm only exists, only has power, and only coheres into reality because we give it our attention, our awe, and our emotional desire. It only exists because we are looking at it and believing it is real. If that mechanism is true for the glitch field, what other maintenance subroutines or reality assertions in our everyday waking lives are we accidentally keeping alive just by looking at them? Think about the infinite scroll of the outraged news cycle. Think about the social media algorithms designed to feed on your anxiety. Think about the toxic societal expectations or parasocial relationships that demand your constant emotional labor. Well, what would happen if, tomorrow morning, you woke up, thinned your ego, and adopted the refusal stance toward the spectacle of your own daily reality?
What happens when the casino of everyday life realizes you're no longer playing the game?
We'll leave you to think about that one. Until next time.